another life. Oh, wow. Recording in progress. That was very formal. Okay, I accept. We were both teachers before we came to work for the EIS, so hopefully we've got a good understanding of teaching in Scotland and in England in Dan's case as well. So hopefully there might be a few questions that we can answer as well as the ones that might be more specific for Matt. So I'm going to start sharing my screen just now. Let's see. Can everyone see that okay? Brilliant. Okay, so as Dan said, we're both organisers that work for the EIS, and really we are, when you are in university as an EIS student member, unless you have hopefully maybe some EIS student reps on your course, your organiser would be your first point of contact for any issues you feel that you want to raise with us whilst you're in university. But I'll come on to a bit more of that. So we're really here to talk to you about how we as a union support you from when you're a student to becoming a probationer and then into your life and career as a teacher. So just to remind you that as a student, your membership with the EIS is free, and it goes from a student membership, obviously whilst you're studying, to a full EIS membership when you start your probationary or induction year. And then we actually run a further deal where it's free for 16 months from the start of your probation year. So if you haven't already, which you have because you're student members, but if people hadn't already, please join a union, a number of unions, and also encourage people that you know haven't joined unions to do the same. So what is a trade union? At its heart, it's groups of workers or a group of workers that get together to work out how to improve their conditions at work. Trade unions are there to represent what the interests of members are. You know, they develop their policy, their campaigns, their actions from what members are raising with them. And it's our role to support members, to give them the skills and training and knowledge and confidence that you need to raise issues in the workplace and also start to do something about them. And what's really important in a trade union is members being active. So we encourage you from the very start of your career as a teacher, as a professional, to be part of a union, to get involved when you have the opportunity, which for you will be on placement most of the time, but also then when you're a probationer out in schools. So why is it important locally and nationally being part of a trade union? Well, collectively, I'm sure I don't need to tell you, there's greater power in the combined strength of workers than there is in the individual. Collectively, you know, people bring so many different experiences to teaching. You know, some have been previously in industry, some are mature students, you know, and it's that collective experience and strength that you can use to really address issues in your workplace. It also gives you a good deal of confidence. There's a certain amount of security being part of a like-minded group of people, and you're all in the same game, which is teaching young people. Being part of a trade union hopefully gives you some greater control over your working life. You know, in teaching, there are various mechanisms that you have to help you address workload issues. You'll come to hear more about working time agreements if you haven't already in the future. But it's about us taking control over workload, but also our well-being at work, our well-being and that of our colleagues as well. So again, we're all acting collectively. And it's about, you know, the rights that we do have. I find, and Dan does as well, I think, when we're doing organising, it's surprising the amount of teachers that have been teaching for years and years and still don't fully know what their rights are within their workplace and within teaching. So, you know, our job as a union is to support you to find out that information and also, you know, to take action on it when it's needed. So I just put in a couple of student voices that we'd included in one of our student magazines. Just a couple of quotes. So, you know, we do have quite a lot of contact as organisers with individual students and with groups of students that we support as well. So I like Kimberly's one here. Don't be afraid to teach. 99% of the time, pupils won't know if you've made a mistake or not. Just keep going. We all make mistakes, and it's important to keep on trying. Or wing it, blasé it out. Sometimes you have to do this, the teacher. Oh, sorry, I've skipped on too quickly there. Okay. And this is a really important one, you know, for student members of a union. It's important to have a voice. It is the only way of making change happen. You're all teachers working with children and young people, and it's you that knows them best and knows what you need as workers in your workplaces. So I don't know if you've heard much as students about the Empowered Schools agenda. I'm not going to go deep into that. That's the Scottish Government agenda that had begun before the pandemic. But for us in the union, what does an empowered teacher mean? It means someone who knows what's fair about their work, someone that has confidence to raise issues, to negotiate, someone that has knowledge and skills, the knowledge and skills to know when they're being disempowered as well and what to do about it. They fight for dignity and respect for themselves and their colleagues. And it is about influencing your profession now and into the future. I think I know as a teacher, I always felt strongly about not only what I did as a teacher, but the way my profession developed and was regarded. And it's important to be valued at work. You know, it's important for us all to have recognition, and that sometimes comes at the bottom of the pile in teaching. I often hear teachers say, you know, it's pupils, parents, and staff somewhere sitting there. But you know, that's something a trade union can help you to do, is feel valued at work. And again, I mentioned your health and well-being, very, very important. You know, I do see a number of students and probationers saying that they're finding things a bit tricky at the moment, not unexpectedly. I mean, Dan and I were teaching students many moons ago, but we've never gone through what you have in terms of the pandemic and placements and disruption, possibly catching COVID yourself, and anxiety and worry. So, you know, protecting your health and well-being is absolutely paramount as a teacher. You can only give of yourself what you have. So making sure that you replenish and recharge is always important. And making sure that your rights are respected. You know, a lot of the rights are there in teaching. It's just making sure that people are aware of them, and that your rights are respected. And remember, collectively, we got the power. So how can we support you on placement? And excuse me, I'm just going to take a quick drink of water. Hopefully in this, whichever school you are on placement in, and some of you might be on placement now, you will have an EIS rep. So find out who it is, introduce yourself to them if they haven't already introduced themselves to you. And they are really a good point of contact when you are on placement. They'll likely to be someone that knows the ins and outs of the schools very well. They'll know that you're a member once you go and tell them, and be happy to give you advice, you know, whether it's generally on things in the school or some union specific advice. So yes, school reps are there to support and advise you when you're on placement. And find out, you know, there might be EIS branch meetings going on. I had a recent communication from a probationer that I was chasing up about something, and he said one of the best things he'd seen in terms of the union was a branch meeting that had taken place, where it was an open forum and everyone brought issues, they were discussed, and then it was decided what action the rep was going to take, and how they were going to take that forward with their senior management. So go to a meeting if you get a chance. If you don't have an EIS rep in school, get in touch with one of us organisers and I'll show you who does what, and all our contact details are on the EIS website. So I've put this in because sometimes, you know, it's very easy for us that have been in the union for a while to get lost in the jargon and just know instantly what roles there are in the union. So the ones that you might come across at the moment when you're on placement in school, you have a school representative. So they are there to support members on an individual basis and also on a collective basis in the school. An LA secretary. We have 35 LA secretaries in Scotland, 32 LA secretaries in Scotland to cover every different local authority, and they represent members in the local authority collectively and individually, and do local bargaining as well. And organiser, our role really is, apart from working with students, and we go out and we usually are doing you know, your welcome induction events, but unfortunately we've not been able to see you for a couple of years, so we're looking forward to getting back to that. But we're there to recruit and train and support reps to get organised in their branches, and also to advise on local and national, to be involved in local and national campaigning, of which there'll be quite a bit to come over the next year or so, I anticipate. So who does what? I'm in a team of 6. So my colleague Ruth Winters, who I think is actually on this call, but just listening in, she covers Glasgow Crichton campus. Myself, I have got Stirling and Edinburgh Napier. Dan, my colleague who introduced this event, has Aberdeen and UHI as well, Dan, some UHI branches. My colleague Dee has Glasgow, Royal Conservatoire and Strathclyde. Suki has UWS, and Amy has Dundee, Edinburgh University, Murray House, and Queen Margaret University as well. We also cover universities, but these are the TEIs, or teacher educational institutions, that you are part of. Okay, I'm just letting someone called Lynn in. So please do get in touch. I'm going to talk about things we can support you to do in university in a moment. So we often get asked, you know, what's the difference between what the EIS can do for us as student members when we're on placement and when we're in university. So on placement is where we as a union, through your school representative, can really help you. If you have got an issue in uni, absolutely do come to us and talk to us about it. But the real route to solving that problem is more internally within your university. So please do make sure you communicate. I don't know if you have student WhatsApp groups or online, but if you've got an issue, it's worth finding out whether it's an issue that applies just to you, or does it apply more widely to a group of students. So keep talking, you know, don't be afraid to raise that with people and find out what other people's experiences are. You might have course representatives, so people that are elected as people that you can go and talk to, that will communicate issues with programme leaders or representatives in the university. If you fancy being an EIS student contact, and we always welcome that, you can let us know, and then you can feed information to us as well if you think there are issues that we need to know about, and we can stay in contact with you if we've got anything to ask you or communicate with you about. You always have your tutors and course leaders as sources of information. They should also be able to direct you to the correct process for raising issues as well, whatever those might be. You always have your University Students Association, and I know Matt will probably talk to you a bit more about that. A university, if you've been through all these sort of places to look for advice, and you've not got any proper recourse, then you always have the university's own complaints procedure to follow. Another good source of information is the GTCS website, so the Into Teaching website. If you type in GTCS Into Teaching, it'll take you straight to it, and it's got a plethora of information about placements. I'm saying there's a plethora of information. I mostly go in there to look at the information about placements, but I know there's lots of other information for students and probationers as well. So that's what I want to say about uni and placement. Uni, there are processes to go through, mostly internal, but we are there to, support, and, feel free to ask advice from us. But when you're on placement in a school itself, make sure you contact either your EIS rep in school or one of us as organisers. So how do we support student teachers in the EIS? Or how do we communicate with you as well? We have a student bulletin, which goes out regularly, every couple of months, I think. We do webinars like this, and we would welcome any feedback from you about subjects that you think would be good for us to do as a trade union for you as student teacher members. We also have a student magazine, Into Teaching. We usually give out copies of this, but it is available on the website. On the level we have in the EIS, we have various committees and departments. So our Education and Qualities Department, representatives from there, so our national officials would regularly be meeting with people in GTCS, Education Scotland, and amongst other issues, if there were any specific issues to do with teachers or teacher training institutions, then they would be raised there. We also have EIS representatives on the university partnership groups. I'm not sure how many there are around the country, but at least 4 or 5. So again, issues that are raised with us as a union can then be raised in these forums. And also, you know, we would be lobbying Scottish Government quite often around numbers in terms of recruitment for student teachers to make sure that everything's balancing up properly. But if you have issues, you raise them with us and we'll do our best to raise them wherever it's most appropriate to do so. And just to really say that it is members, as I said, that directly influence and shape campaigns. We are just about to embark on a round of campaigning around local council elections. So hot off the press, not even cut properly, is our local government manifesto, detailing some of the things that we are looking for around about the teacher workforce. I'm not going to read it, I didn't plan to do this. About pay, teacher wellbeing, schools, the pre-5 curriculum, you know, what we have pre-5 arrangements in terms of nursery teachers and access to nursery teachers, ASN, additional support needs, huge area that is under-resourced and understaffed, and poverty and inequity. So, you know, we will be working at local level to make sure that these aims that we have as a union, which come from our members, as our members saying, you know, this isn't right, this needs to improve. That's one avenue we take it to put pressure on our local elected officials. So just to remind you, we are a campaigning union, and we will continue to campaign in this post-COVID. Can we say post-COVID yet? I don't think we can. Not sure about that. I think we're still mid-ish towards the tail end of, fingers crossed, COVID. And what we're going to be campaigning for is a reduction in class sizes, a reduction in the maximum class contact that teachers have with pupils in order to give them more time out to plan and prepare, and an end to having 0 hours contracts for our supply teachers. And that's along with the pay and workload and ASN and everything else that we're campaigning on all the time. So campaigning is really important. It was during the pandemic, earlier on in the pandemic, sorry, that our campaigning meant that face masks were being used in schools, that risk assessments were being properly carried out, especially for people that were vulnerable clinically, or cared for people that were clinically vulnerable, and pregnant teachers as well. And where we felt that things, you know, local councils weren't taking strong enough action, we entered into disputes with them to make sure that we escalated that and pushed that until we got the things that our members were demanding that they wanted in schools to make them feel safe. And we also made the Scottish Government pledge extra funding so that supply teachers who hadn't been covered by the furlough scheme were not disadvantaged. So we campaign, we continue to campaign, and we welcome your support around these campaigns as well. So I don't know if I'm going to what's the word, over-egg the pudding? I think I might have mixed my metaphors there. Why join a union? Your influence in your profession now, in the future. You've got opportunities to network and learn. We've got a lot of professional learning opportunities which you have access to as a student. Get involved in our campaigns, be an effective voice in the workplace now, you know, and build up the skills to do that in the future. Free membership again. I don't know who wrote this stuff. I just keep on flagging up the free membership. So if you want to get involved, you could set up an EIS student group, get involved in an education or a student teacher society. If you need any help on that, give us a shout. But do get together with your fellow student teachers, have a wee online group or WhatsApp group, and make sure you're talking about the issues that you're noticing on your course or on placement, and do, even talking about them collectively is a good start. And then reaching out to wherever you need to get support to do something about those issues. And yeah, EIS website, special section just for you. I'm trying to think, there's tabs along the top. I can never remember which one it is. Select one of the tabs along the top, and on the drop-down menu, it will say students. That's your section. So yeah, lots of information about health and wellbeing. And I'd forgotten about student sponsorship. We do have an allocation of money as organisers, which we generously give out to you if you say, I want some money. You have to have some kind of good reason, like, I don't know, a graduation ball or celebration barbecue, but or you want to sponsor someone to come in and give a talk, as long as it's not someone frightening and right wing, that'll be okay. So give us a shout, and we'll see how we can help. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with this quote from Rosie from the University of Aberdeen. You can't water the flowers with an empty watering can. Look after yourself so that you can give the children the best version of you. So, thanks, Rosie. And
okay.
Sharing.
Thank you very much, Ellie. That was a fantastic presentation showing what the EIS can do for student members. But we are, a member-led organisation, and you are members of the EIS. This is your union, and it's your union to shape as well as get support from. And the tab because I checked on the EIS website, is the second one along, which actually is called Your Union. So if you drop that down, then that says about student teachers on there. So we will have time at the end for any questions. If anybody does come up with any questions, you can put them in the chat, and we'll put them to our speakers at the end, or when we get to the question and answer session, you can raise your hand and we'll take any questions and answers then. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Matt Crilly from NUS Scotland to discuss how the NUS can support you and what the NUS does. Thank you.
Thanks so much, and thank you for having me along tonight. It's wonderful to see you all, and it's lovely to spend this Thursday evening with you. So yeah, my name is Matt Crilly. I'm the president of the National Union of Students Scotland, and we are essentially a federation of over 30 student unions across Scotland. So you probably know what a student union is, I guess, like as enrolled in your course already. You've probably heard them before. You might have really varying ideas as to what they are. You might think of, like, I don't know, some sort of like Freshers Week party, or you might think about, I don't know, the Hot Air Balloon Society, or maybe the people that hand you leaflets trying to win elections and stuff like that. But I guess my job here today is to tell you, I guess, what I think they are and what they can be. And as has already been chatted, I guess the power that we have in unions and in student unions as well, and the real kind of power that we can have to change stuff, and what they're there to do to support you. So student unions are a collective of students. You are automatically a member of your university student union when you enroll on your course in Scotland, and they are made up of students. And again, we really can kind of change things. And I thought I'd maybe give a bit of an example, actually, of how I first got involved in my student union at the University of Strathclyde. I was in the same faculty as the wonderful student teachers at the University of Strathclyde. And I had kind of mixed ideas of what the student union was. But we really felt it when we got hit with quite a challenging academic practice within our faculty, within the university. As students, we were told at this time a few years ago at Strathclyde that if we'd submitted our essay or assignment just 1 minute late, we would automatically get given a mark of 0. So there's no flexibilities. There was no, I don't know, I lacked maybe the compassion that I wanted as a student there. And some of my friends got hit with it quite badly, like for like a varying reasons, they got hit quite badly with this policy. So as a group of students, just kind of regular students enrolled in the faculty, we kind of organised to change it. So we formed a wee group as students, kind of through the student union. We tabled papers to the university, and eventually, after kind of many committee meetings and meeting with the lecturers and the staff in the university, we actually managed to kind of overturn this draconian policy. And from our perspective, like improve the education that we were receiving. And you still got punished if you submitted your essay late, as I think is probably should be the case if you're handing in stuff late. But it was not a mark of 0. Straight away, you were kind of, flung on the heap, and that was it. You were finished. So that to me is probably one of the most important examples of to what a student union is. You can be a course rep, you can get together with your classmates, help improve education, your education, the university around you, and potentially society around you as well. So student unions are there to try and campaign to improve education, make differences. So again, at my time at Strathclyde, we got things like free housing for students that would be made homeless or to flee their homes. We managed to establish financial support funds for students that were struggling. And we'd done this through organising collectively as students and putting our kind of demands towards the university and trying to win and campaign to improve our surroundings as students at the university. And NUS, the National Union of Students, is really a collection of these 30 student unions. And it's where your local student union and collectively we come together at this national level to help try and improve things nationally for students too. And we've had, quite a successful history. The reason that we today as students don't pay, or potentially don't pay if you're an undergrad Scottish student, is because NUS successfully abolished tuition fees in Scotland. We campaigned as students collectively to abolish tuition fees for undergraduate Scottish students. And I guess now our campaigns are, how do we take that further? How do we try and abolish international fees and postgraduate fees? The reason that students in the UK don't pay council tax is because we collectively have organised through student unions, through the National Union of Students to get students exempt from council tax. And over the course of the pandemic, we've also been trying to campaign as much as we can through really hard circumstances. I think it's been really, really difficult for students broadly. I mean, student teachers in particular, I mean, the experiences you folks have had has been unreal. But as the National Union of Students Scotland, we have still had some successes campaigning collectively. So winning things like the legal right for students to leave student halls, which we didn't have before. We were trapped in contracts that you could never leave, unlike kind of private tenancies in Scotland. So we won that legal right for students. We campaigned and we've won something like £80 million in student support funding from the Scottish Government. So hardship funding, which should be at your university. So if you're struggling financially, there should be funds there that you can access, hardship and discretionary funds, digital support funding and other things to try and make our lives easier, kind of navigating through education and society at this time. But as I said, student unions are quite complicated things. They do offer loads of things. So at your local student union, you can get involved as a class rep and do that kind of thing that I described. You can also do some of the fun stuff like your clubs and societies and all these types of things. you can often get access to funding to take part in these types of activities. I've had quite a number of free trips to different places as part of a student-run club and society. And if you want to be particularly hackish like me, and you really want to spend all your time trying to campaign for students, you can also do things like run in the student union elections, because the student unions are often run by paid but democratically elected student representatives. But one of the really key things that I want you folks to perhaps take away today, because it might be that all those other things maybe aren't for you, like the clubs and societies and the freshers weeks and stuff like that, but they are very, very important institutions if things were to go wrong on your course. So if you're at your university, if things go wrong, say academically, say things don't go well on the placements and stuff, on your placements, and maybe there's talk of things like a fitness to practice hearing, which is obviously a really dreaded thing, or maybe you get into real academic difficulties and you're looking at things like complaints procedures. Your student union should have a confidential, free advice service with trained advisors there who are there to support you through anything that you might experience kind of academically. The advice services vary quite a lot depending on which university you're at and what your student union has and how much money your student union has and stuff like that. But most student unions offer an advice service, and it is there to support you through those things. If you ever have to navigate a complicated, scary university system, there are trained independent advisors there that sit within the student union, not within the university itself, there to support you. And they're also there to support you or if you experience things like financial difficulties. So they'll know how to best access the funds that might be available on campus that you might be entitled to. Things like housing difficulties, personal difficulties, they can point you in the direction of the support that's there. And I'm just going to copy this wee bit into the chat because it's probably the kind of key point that I want to make today. So if you are struggling at all through your time as a student at university, even if you've never stepped foot in your student union before, just know that these advice services are usually there for you if things were to go wrong on your course or as a student in general. But again, I guess I want to end on the positive note as well, that I would hope that you might take advantage of some of the wonderful things that your student union will offer, the amazing social opportunities. It's where I met my partner who's sitting in the other room. You can make friends, you can have fun, but it's also where we can come together as students and change our education, build the education that we want to see, but also maybe seek to change society. We as students collectively coming together through our unions have quite a proud history in driving societal change. I always love to say that the National Union of Students was the first national organisation in the UK that backed gay rights, that wasn't explicitly a gay rights organisation. Back in 1973, we have campaigned against apartheid. We've been at the forefront of all this social change, and we've been at the forefront of shaping the education and the society we want to see. So do consider getting involved in your student union if you haven't been already. But with that, I'll pass back. Cheers.
Okay, thank you, Matt, for an absolutely fantastic presentation of what the NUS does and the importance of the NUS and the importance of being involved in your union, and so on an NUS standpoint, as well as in the EIS, because these are your organisations and they're out there supporting you and fighting for your rights. So I'm going to stop recording now. So just one moment.